Yes, I've had one already, but what about second COVID haircuts? Welcome back to Craft Computing, everyone. As always, I'm Jeff. Today marks the launch of one of the worst kept secrets in the industry. We first got a glimpse of it in pictures and full specs back in June, but now I've got it in my hands, or rather it's sitting on the table next to me. This is the NZXT N7 Z490 motherboard. Are you ready for it? I didn't get the white one. Taking a quick look around the motherboard reveals, well, not a whole lot actually, mostly due to the return of the armor plating from the previous Z390 motherboard from NZXT. And I promise that's the last time I'm going to make that joke. Maybe. We're going to start around the back with the I/O shield, which is following the current trend of integrating the shield into the motherboard itself, which I definitely welcome. And for as well featured as this motherboard seems to be, it does feel a bit sparse back here. While the I/O does include antenna ports for the included Wi-Fi 6 card, there are only a pair of USB 2.0 ports, a single HDMI, two USB 3.2 Gen 2, both C and A, another pair of USB 3.1 Gen 1, a Realtek 2.5 gigabit LAN port, and your standard audio outputs. Additionally, there's a CMOS reset button built into the rear I/O, which is always a welcome sight. I feel this board could do with a display port, as well as at least a couple more USB ports, as your keyboard, mouse, headset, RGB mousepad, and USB webcam — you did expense this out as a work-from-home machine, right? — are pretty much going to tap you out as far as USB connectivity goes. Moving to the internals on this board, and the 37 screws required to take the shroud off, we see a fairly robust feature set, given the $229 MSRP. The big selling feature here is the multitude of USB, RGB, and fan headers. There are 3 USB 2.0, 1 USB 3.1 Gen 1, 1 USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type-C. By the way, someone please fire the USB and NVMe naming guys, reanimate Mitch Hedberg, and put him in charge. 7 PWM fan headers and 4 RGB headers. I assume one of the reasons for including so many USB 2.0 headers has to do something with the RGB headers, as 2 of the internal RGB connections are for NZXT's own system, and controllers like the Hue 2 require an internal USB 2.0 header. If you decide to bling out every possible component of your system, at least you'll have plenty of internal connectivity to cover it. On the plus side of that, if you simply need a couple additional USB 2.0 ports, there are plenty of headers to choose from. The other 2 RGB headers are for universal systems, with one running a single color 12-volt output, and the other being of the addressable RGB 5-volt variety. All of the RGB ports, NZXT's and the universals, can be controlled from NZXT's CAM software inside of Windows. While it might seem a little limiting to reserve half of the RGB headers for NZXT's own system, this is actually a reversal from their Z370 board, which only included support for the Hue 2 accessories. And for builders looking for complete integration with their motherboard and RGB components, the N7 Z490 gives you the best of both worlds. The motherboard layout is actually very similar to a number of other Z490 boards on the market, with 4 DDR4 DIMM slots, 2 M.2 NVMe slots, 4 SATA 3.0 ports, 3 1X PCIe slots, and a pair of X16 slots, although that second slot is only X4 electrically. However, let it be noted that X4 on the second slot is pretty much the norm nowadays, that both Crossfire and SLI seem to be dead in the water. Other goodies on the board include a TPM port, a UART header, and a mini PCI Express slot, with that aforementioned Intel AX200 NGW card providing Wi-Fi 6 connectivity. Now, if only Unify would hurry up and release their Wi-Fi 6 APs, I could give that one a proper test. Ultimately, I think I do want to do a full custom build with this board, but for today, I think I'm just going to put it together on my test bench and see what kind of out-of-the-box overclocking ability we can expect. Now, believe it or not, I do own some hardware that I have not shown off on this channel before, and one of those is my test bench. Don't laugh, it's kind of old. Yes, my friends, this is about a 12-year-old Leon Lee test bench, and it's definitely starting to show its age a little bit. First and foremost, I had to take out the top cross member here because most modern air coolers aren't compatible with that. Secondly, I've had a couple of different graphics cards that are a little bit too long, and they actually don't let me use the fan mounts on the rear of this, so I've had to test some graphics cards with the fans removed. Mostly I use this to either A, play games here in my office, or to validate game benchmarks on graphics cards that I'm testing. It's currently got an i9-9900K running on an ASRock Phantom Gaming Z390 motherboard, 16GB of Viper Blackout 3600MHz memory, and dueling NVMe drives, an ADATA XPG 480GB for the boot disk, and a Lexar 610 1TB for game storage. It doesn't need an upgrade, but when you've got a 10th gen board, you might as well. So I'm going to be testing the NZXT N7 Z490 with an i9 10850K, 16GB of Patriot Viper Blackout Edition, but 4400 MHz this time, and a Zotac Gaming RTX 2070 Super. I'm going to leave the 1200 watt Be Quiet power supply and NVMe drives on this bench, but for cooling I will be swapping out the Assassin 3 for a Be Quiet Dark Rock Pro 4. Not because I'm a Be Quiet fanboy, but just because I want to keep that stealth fighter look of the NZXT intact. Alright, give me 10 minutes while I swap this out. And somehow that 10 minutes turned into about, well, 3 hours later. No fault of the board or anything, I was just having fun. But the results are in, and it's not often that I say this, but I think the looks of this motherboard are going to make it or break it for most people. Overall, the feature set of the N7 Z490 is solid. Nothing awe-inspiring, but no odd omissions either. For me, there's not quite enough USB ports on the back, but there are tons of headers inside, at least as far as USB 2.0 goes. Overall, overclocking options on the N7 were fairly easy to navigate, and I was able to clock the 10850K all the way up to 5.1 GHz. However, I was running out of thermal headroom and clocking back down to 5.0. Memory overclocking, however, I was not quite as successful, as both XMP profiles 1 and 2 were unable to post on this motherboard. Now 44 MHz without doing a lot of fine tuning is still fairly difficult to achieve, whatever XMP may have you believe, but I was still able to get this up to 3600 MHz at CAS 18, so not too shabby at all. If I were to spend a little bit more time with this board, I may be able to eke 4000 MHz out of it, but time being a factor in this review, I called 3600 MHz pretty good. Overall, I really like the N7 Z490 from NZXT. The black armor has more stealth cred than an MSI laptop, and the white version is again begging to cosplay as a stormtrooper, whenever cons happen to be a thing again. For $229, I think this is a very tempting option for a Z490 motherboard. The feature set is right in line with what I would expect at this price point. It offers solid performance at the top of Intel's current consumer lineup, and it has looks that will make some builders swoon, although it may clash with some of the more extreme RGB angular graphics cards that are on the market today. If you're interested in checking out the NZXT N7 Z490 motherboard for yourself, it's available today, and as soon as links are available, I will have them down in the video description. On your way down there, make sure to drop this video a like and subscribe to Craft Computing if you haven't done so already. Follow me on Twitter at Craft Computing to keep up with my daily shenanigans, and if you like the content you see on this channel and want to help support me in what I do, consider joining the Patreon. Link is also down in the video description. Thank you all so much for watching this one, and as always, I will see you in the next video. And it's a shame my beer has been gone for hours. Cheers, everyone. So I don't film late at night. Beer for today is from Wichita Brewing Company. It is the V6 IPA. And, boy, Jason sent all of these beers over, partially to apologize for the April Fool's joke that he didn't fill me in on. And this is either extremely generous of him, or one of the world's longest slow trolls. Because I swear, there's been some good beers in here, but there's been some others. Hoppy, Aromatic, and Approachable IPA. 7%. Okay, I'm digging that. It's a much, much sweeter and much more floral nose than I expected out of anything from Kansas. Let's just get on with the show. Well, I'll say this is finally a Kansas IPA that doesn't taste like dirt. This is an interesting beer. It reminds me a lot more of a juicy IPA as far as the flavor profile goes. It's a lot sweeter and a lot more floral, but a juicy IPA isn't usually dry. and this has a drying characteristic on the back end of it. It's kind of like a juicy IPA that was made with champagne yeast. Yeah,